So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. There's a lot of shit going on in the third dimension. Every time I peep in, my mouth is to the floor. Not because I'm shocked, and I'm not desensitized or anything like that by the things that I see or the things that I hear. It's just that the illusion of embellishment, the deception is what makes my mouth drop to the floor. And the lengths that these people will go to create fear, panic, distractions, and to create a system of misinformation and to disrupt communication between your average person. Because if people have not been peeping, a lot of what's going on is an attempt to get your average person to not want to interact or communicate with your average person, but to want to always have their focus on someone who is a celebrity, a social media influencer, while you have people around you who may really like you, who may want to communicate with you, but you would rather live in a fantasy world chasing fake people and fantasies that don't even exist, or should I say, phantoms that don't even exist. Because a lot of these people, I'm beginning to really realize they really don't even exist. They're illusions, but they have the masses chasing and following illusions, keeping you distracted from yourself, keeping you distracted from doing work to tap into 5D energies. You feel what I'm saying? I'm watching a person right now. It's a man that I know very well. No one on YouTube, someone in my personal life. I'm watching a person right now be devoured by the third dimension. I'm watching him be devoured by the illusions of the third dimension. He was raised Jehovah's Witness. So he's up under the Jehovah's Witness effect, which in turn is the same as the Yahweh effect. He's up under that. He has no personality. He wonders why things do not work out for him. He wonders why every time he tries to, start a project, it never comes to fruition. He can't keep no money in his pocket. His life is just struggle, from struggle, from struggle to struggle, from can't do to can't don't. And instead of him taking a step back and just examining what he has believed in his life, what he has accepted in his life, instead of him doing that, he walks around with an attitude. He walks around with an attitude. He will not take any self responsibility. He will not do any self evaluation because he's waiting for Jehovah to save him. He's dealing with a sick relative who lives in another state. And my thing is, if you are so in tune with God and Jehovah, then why aren't you praying for that relative? Why aren't you praying for them? You're so worried about them. Why aren't you praying for them? Or better yet, why haven't you gone out there to visit them? You go everywhere else you want to go. That's because he's a victim of the third dimension. He's a victim of the third dimension. He's been victimized by his humanity. And he has allowed illusionary outside forces to basically devour him. And this is a friend of mine, but I can't help him and I can't save him. And that's the whole thing. No one can save you, and no one can help you if you really don't want help. This is the same man who judged me for my spiritual beliefs and my spiritual practices, if you want to call them that in layman's terms. But I really don't look at them as practices and beliefs because what I do is what I do. What I do has no name for it because it's spirit. There is no name for spirit. This is my walk. This is my passion. This is my individual spirituality. There is no name for it because it's not connected to any religion. It's not connected to any type of movement. It's none of those things. I work in the spirit, and whatever tools I use for that is my business. Whatever work I do spiritually and whatever tools I use to work in to help me work in the spirit in this human edifice that I'm in, then that is just what I use. But this is the same man who judged me for my spiritual practices. But the thing is that whatever I'm doing is working for me. I'm not suffering. I'm not hungry. I'm not homeless. But you're a grown man and you are all of those things. You work a dead end job that you're always complaining about at UPS, and you're suffering. You are suffering. And I'm not, let me be clear about something. I'm very theatrical when I speak, and I'm very dramatic when I speak. That's just how I talk. I am not basking in glee because of someone suffering, but because he listens to other people. He listens to other people, but he never listens to his spirit. He don't have to listen to me. I don't give him any advice. He doesn't have to listen to me. This is the same man, let me go back again and repeat it, who judged me about my spiritual practices, but you say that your God, Jehovah, who's also known as Yahweh, you say that he is here to help and protect you. But from where I'm sitting, I see you suffering. But you judged my spiritual practices. You judge what I do. You judge my witchcraft and voodoo or whatever you want to call it. I don't, whatever you want to call it. You judge that. But witchcraft keeps my fucking food in my refrigerator. Witchcraft protects me when you know how to use it right. Fuck you and whatever. Maybe if you used it, you wouldn't have to be sleeping on other people's couches. Maybe if you used it, life would not be so hard for you. Maybe if you tapped into spirit using the wise ancient energies, which I like to call it, which is what it is. Maybe if you used it, you wouldn't have the problems constantly that you're having. Problems are going to arise. Challenges are going to arise. But it's your spirituality that gives you the understanding or the knowing that you need to get through those times. But because he listens to outside influences, you're listening to people who create traps for people like you. That's what he listens to. There's a lot of shit going on. He's up under the effect of illusions and delusions and suffering. He's up under the 3D world effect. He's up under it. And this is a person that I know very well. Let's talk about Leonard Cure. I believe that's the person's name. As we all know by now, there was video footage of the individual Leonard Cure. I did not really know a lot about him, but he's the gentleman who went to jail for many years, 16 years to be exact, and he was exonerated because they found out he did not commit the crime that he was serving time for. He gets out of prison. The other day gets into an altercation with a police officer. The police officer pulls him over because he was driving erratically, right? And you could see that he was driving erratically. The police officer pulled him over and told him to put his hands behind his back because he was getting ready to arrest him for reckless driving, because evidently in the state of Georgia, reckless driving is an offense that they can arrest you for. You don't just get a ticket for that. You see in the footage, I'm trying to figure out what was I looking at? I mean, this is just my own perspective. I'm not getting into the elements of, you know, the poor black man being shot by the big bad white man. I'm not following that trajectory anymore, because following that trajectory keeps you trapped in the third dimension as well. Constantly pouring your energy into that mindset keeps you trapped. Because see, I'm not the poor black man. That's not me. But the person that I was just telling you about, the Jehovah worshiper, that person, he's the poor black man. He's the poor black man. Because what I did not mention is a couple of weeks ago, not even a couple of weeks ago, this same person got locked up. He got locked up. He's out of jail. Now he got out the next day. But he got locked up for something that happened 2, 3, 4 years ago, a traffic violation. And they locked him up. While he was coming home from work, they locked him up in the parking lot of his job. He got out. Why didn't Jehovah protect you? Getting back to Leonard Cure, there was something really off about that whole situation. There was something really off about that. The police officer told him to put his hands behind his back, put his hands on the truck, whatever. And I noticed that when he told him that, he never directly put his hands on the truck. He did like a side move. He put his hands on the truck and like in a side angle and not directly on the truck, straight forward. Now, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory. I don't want to do that. But I have a serious question. And maybe it's not, but was that shit staged? Was that staged? And he didn't go by Leonard Cure. He went by something else. And here's the thing, too. Here's another thing. I'm just looking at this as an occultist and as a spirited person. Here's another thing, too, that I found interesting. When I look at clear pictures because that video footage was blurry. If you noticed, you can't see his face. The video footage is very blurry. But when I look up pictures of Leonard Cure, the alleged real one, he's darker than the person in the video footage. So I was a bit confused. You feel what I'm saying? I was a bit confused. Like, who? What? And then he was speaking erratically. He said his name was Yahweh in the video footage. He didn't respond to Leonard Cure. He didn't recognized himself as Leonard Cure. He said his name was Yahweh. Then he kept signaling. He did the Baphomet signal, hand as below, as above, so below. Did people catch that? He put one hand, pointed one hand in the sky, then he pointed one hand downward. And then at some point before he did that symbol, he kept pointing to the sky. He did some type of symbol in the sky, and then he proceeded to physically assault the police officer who was doing his job, by the way. And I don't give a fuck who gets mad about it. I'm just asking questions. What are we really looking at? Who are these people? I don't think the police officer was in on it. I think this was ritualistic, and I think that there was something really dark and sinister behind it. Some type of, I don't know, dark ritualistic agenda, I guess you can say. Because that man was acting very strange and erratically. And then the way that he attacked the police officer, it was almost as if he became possessed by something. Or he probably already was. Just speaking, just speaking in 3D language. You feel what I'm saying? So I really don't understand. I do, but I'm just not, I don't feel like getting into all of that. I do understand. I do. But some things you just can't say on YouTube like that. People, what we are watching is the end of civilization as we know it. We are watching the end of civilization as we know it. And this has happened throughout the ages. It's happened many times before. People are waiting for asteroids, they're waiting for tsunamis, they're waiting for some type of, cataclysm to take place of a biblical proportion. But what people don't understand is that when a lot of these so-called prophecies in the Bible were talking about, fire destroying the earth, they weren't talking about literal fire. They weren't talking about literal fire. That was symbolic and symbolism and allegorical. They're showing you what is destroying the earth now, or what is destroying civilization. They're showing you what's doing it. They're talking about, and I'm getting it now, they're talking about air and fire magic. They weren't talking about literal fire. They're talking about the illusions of air and fire magic, the smoke and the mirrors, how the deception is destroying the world, the smoke and the mirrors, deception, illusions. How you can set a fake fire over here, get people to focus at something right here, but you're over here doing something totally different. That is what they meant when they said the world will be destroyed by fire. They're talking about illusion. I'm not talking about the real element of fire. I'm talking about the illusion. When I saw people gazing up, looking at that eclipse, I knew when that eclipse took place, I knew that some things were going to start manifesting within the earthly realm. See, people are so busy gazing up and looking upwards, being distracted by that, that they're not paying attention to what's going on inside of them. You feel what I'm saying? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with looking, at the moon and the stars. Nothing wrong with that. But you have to have a certain amount of spiritual understanding or knowing within yourself about how these celestial events, how they manipulate what's going on down here on the earth. Because it seems like every time there's some type of major celestial event, that is when we start getting these types of crazy things happening down here on earth. And that is by human design. Just like people are always talking about money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. It's the humans who put the energy behind the money that make it whatever it is. Money is not evil. People are evil. People are evil. It's not the money, it's the people who are evil. People make conscious choices to do fucked up shit. And right now, there's a collective consciousness of people who are determined as elitists to keep doing fucked up shit. That's just like the reports that are coming out of the Middle East. A lot of people are saying that the information that we're getting over here in the United States about what's going on over in Israel and Palestine is not accurate. That we're being told lies over here about what's going on over there, allegedly. Because you have to be careful what you say on YouTube. It's smoke mirrors and the fake illusion of fire. So if we're getting misinformation about what, let me say this. It's mighty funny that now they don't talk about what's going on in Ukraine anymore. They don't talk about that anymore. It's mighty funny they don't talk about that thing anymore either. Y'all know that thing I'm talking about that we've been dealing with for the past 3 years. They don't talk about that no more either. Smoke and mirrors, fire destroying the world, the illusion of fire, not the real element of fire, but the illusion of it. Smoke and mirrors, starting fires, not literally. I'm talking symbolically, starting fires to distract people. What does smoke and flames do? It distracts you. It causes fear. It causes panic. And now it's being manifested over in the Middle East. So, what's really going on? What's really going on? But you have people like the individual that I was talking about, the so called friend of mine. I was talking about him in the beginning of the video. You have people like him who walk around being victimized by the third dimension. And then in turn, he wants to victimize other people because he's being victimized. That's interesting. What we're witnessing is the decay and death of third dimensional life. And some people just don't want to let it go. Some people are comfortable living in the illusion. They don't want to see the real world. They don't want to elevate to a higher state of consciousness. They don't want to elevate to the 5D earth. They want to stay in the third and the fourth dimension, which is illusions. They don't want to elevate to the fifth dimension where you find clarity, where you find a sense of self, where you find rebirth, where you find life. They don't want to elevate to that. They would rather sit in the third dimension and debate about esoteric knowledge and what book you read and how many more people you can get up under your your following or your cult. That is what they're concerned about. Because most people that I hear talking about creating a new world and going into the five dimension, most of them people are not really interested in that because I can tell they're not really doing any work to do that. And I'm not judging them for that. That's their business, not judging. I'm just observing it and calling it out. I'm just observing it. What work are you doing to elevate to the fifth dimension? See, one thing the spirit showed me is that one thing that I had to stop doing, I had to stop responding to people in a third dimensional way. I had to stop responding to challenges and conflicts in a third dimensional way. Like this friend that I'm telling you about, I'm having some conflict with him right now because of his fucking attitude. So instead of me confronting him about it, just like the other day, I had an issue with someone in my family who I will not name, and I did not respond to her in a three-dimensional way. I didn't do that. I responded in a fifth dimensional way. And you know how I responded? I pretended like it was non existent. As much as possible, I mean, you can do this. I mean, some things you got to address, you know what I mean? But I am no longer, and this is what's helping me to elevate, I am no longer participating in other people's self depravity and their self destructive course or trajectory on a path of their own misery. I'm no longer supporting that. So if a motherfucker want to be miserable and if they want to walk around with their ass on their head, I'm going to let them do that. Who am I to tell them you shouldn't be miserable? Who am I to tell them that? I'm going to do like Jesus do. I'm going to leave you motherfuckers the fuck alone. I'm going to leave you the fuck alone. I'm going to leave you. I'm not talking to anybody I'm not talking to any of you that's listening to me. I'm talking about these people in my personal 3D world when I have to come back to the 3D because I'm constantly going in between the dimensions. When I'm in the 5D, it's nothing but pure. It's happiness, it's joy. And when I'm in the 5D, it feels like the fall and the autumn and the Halloween time and the end of harvest all the time. I love this time of year. I love the end of harvest. I love Halloween, Thanksgiving. I love the months of September, October, and November. I just love those times. I just love it. And in the fifth dimension, for me, it is always that time of year. And I love it. And I will throw this little tidbit out there. You can do a lot during this time of year when it comes to money and finances and manifestation of that nature. You can. But see, people like the person that I'm talking about, because he believes in Jehovah, because he believes in Jehovah, and he does not believe in the true God within himself, can't help him. Can't help them. He will not accept that his life is decaying and deteriorating because he will not look at spirit, because he keeps following men. He follows men. And he will not balance that energy out with feminine energy. He keeps following a bunch of masculine energy, a bunch of masculine views, which is causing a destabilization in his life. The fifth dimension is balanced. The fifth dimension is balanced. Masculine energy is very heavy to me. It's very heavy and it's very dark. And it has its place. And when I say dark, I don't mean in terms of feminine energy, where feminine energy is dark and hidden because of wisdom. Masculine energy is very dark and heavy because of suffering and torment that has been brought into the world because of masculine energy. Let's have a conversation. Spirit was talking to me yesterday. And was giving me information about Atlantis. Atlantis was a galactic federation, a central center point, and there were multiple planets and planets that were connected to the Atlantean galaxy, right? What really caused the fall of so-called Atlantis, see, Atlantis was not an individual civilization on one planet. Many planets had connection to this galactic central or center point or pentacle that we call Atlantis. There was some type of galactic, I want to say, let me, how can I put it? Uh, there was some type of galactic cataclysm that took place. There was a galactic alignment that caused the destruction of these other planets and other civilizations that were connected to the Atlantean Galactic Federation. Earth was one of these planets, but the problem, not the problem, but Earth survived it. Earth survived it. It doesn't mean that Earth wasn't affected, but the planets that were affected the most were Venus and Mars, and of course the other planets that were destroyed at that time. And the remaining planets that were left, they were left lifeless. But again, we have to remember this was also a how can I put it, a transcended type of time as well, if I'm saying that correctly. You know what I'm saying. This was also a time of transition to higher dimensions. And Earth got stuck in the 3D dimension because prior to the Atlantean galactic fall, prior to that, the galaxy and the universe was more spiritual in nature, meaning there weren't these barriers. Planets were more spiritual in nature. But some wise guy decided to, I'm going to say, tamper with quantum mechanics, and they wanted to merge dimensions. They were experimenting with that within the Atlantean galaxy. They wanted to experiment with quantum mechanics and merging dimensions, and what happened was it caused a galactic cataclysm across the dimensions, and it caused a reverberation of cataclysms. Mars and Venus they were destroyed to the point that life could never exist on those planets again. And a lot of the survivors of this ended up on Earth. If you look at the video, Bone Thugs and Harmony, that song that came out eons ago, that song, what is the name of it? Shit. Why do I stay high? Why do I stay high? You know the song I'm talking about. If I could teach the world, that's all about. That's all about what happened during that time. You have to be able to look at it and see it. A lot of the survivors of that galactic fall, they ended up on Earth, and they brought a lot of the knowledge and technology to Earth, especially to ancient Kemet and around the world. So Atlantis was not just one place on one planet. Any planet that had life had an Atlantean galactic, I guess you can call it a what? Substation. Each planet had its own Atlantis galactic substation. It wasn't about one civilization on one planet. That is why they keep playing games with us, saying, oh, Atlantis was here. Oh, Atlantis was there. Oh, no, Atlantis was here. Oh, no, it was here. It was here. They ain't found no motherfucking Atlantis or no Earth. That's why they keep playing games about it. It's the same thing with Lemuria. Lemuria was another planet. And I'm inclined to believe that it's possible that that was Venus. Venus's real identity, Lemuria. Maybe. And then again, Lemuria could have also been a galactic energy as well. But each planet had its own connection to the Atlantean Galactic Federation. It was a federation of planets, I'm going to say it that way, that were destroyed. And it was one of the greatest cataclysms that has been hidden, which is probably up there in the Vatican some damn where, throughout history. And it really makes me go back to the empire of Tartaria. Tartaria, and they've removed, like I said, they've removed a lot of information about Tartaria. You got to go on TikTok. Tartaria, remember we're talking about smoke, mirrors, and the end of civilizations. Tartaria is connected to Atlantis, or the Atlantean Galactic Federation as well. Atlantis was a federation of planets. It wasn't just one continent. That's the smoke and mirrors that they use to keep you confused. They want to tell everybody that everything is under the ocean and, we can't access it because it's under the ocean. Bullshit. Bullshit. They tell people that because they know people are going to believe it. Now, again, Earth was affected by this cataclysm, but Earth wasn't destroyed. Earth was spared. But what ended up happening is Earth, in the process of it being spared, I think Earth got knocked down into the third dimension. That was the only way that it was spared. While this cataclysm caused some planets to transcend to higher dimensions, even if it meant their physical destruction. And I believe that is what happened to Mars and Venus. And why is this all important? It's important because it gives us an understanding of the past in a very important way. And it really gives us some form of information about our past that has been hidden. And it can give you an understanding of why people are acting the way that they're acting now. Because the same way people are acting now, this is how people acted before the fall of so-called Atlantis and Lemuria. People were acting the same way. There was an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I mean the original Twilight Zone, where this man and this woman ended up on a planet that they had no idea what this planet was or anything, right? They had no idea what the planet was. And first the man ended up there. Then the woman ended up there. And a lot of these TV shows and movies, they put stuff right in our face sometimes, and they show us what's the real deal. But as the public, we're just entertained. But as an occultist, I look at that totally differently. So this man, and I've talked about this before, this man and this woman ended up on this planet. To make a long story short, the planet they ended up on was Earth. It was Earth in its very infancy stages when it dropped down to the third dimension. And the man called himself Adam. He could speak English. The woman could not speak English. But she was able to describe to him what happened to her planet and how she ended up on Earth. Her planet, some kind of way, got out of its orbit and she ended up on Earth. This is everything that I'm talking about. And this did not take place no 12,000 years ago, by the way, like they're trying to say. This took place probably 12 billion years ago or some shit like that. It might have happened during the time of the dinosaurs. Who knows? Because that story about the dinosaurs is very sketchy. Because they even have a movie that came out recently that I saw about the dinosaurs and how humans had advanced technology at that time. And some kind of way, this man and his daughter, I guess it was his daughter, I forgot the name of the movie, but they ended up on this planet. They were from another planet. And they ended up on this planet right before the end, or the cataclysm that ended the reign of the dinosaurs. See, all of that, when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, all of that is connected to the galactic fall of Atlantis. When you put the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's important for people to understand that, because that's also about our spiritual growth. And it's giving you insight into how there's nothing new under the sun. I didn't talk too much, y'all. I'm done talking. But we're living under an illusionary effect. There was another Twilight Zone. Now let me back up for a minute. Going back to that Twilight Zone with the man and the woman. He ended up calling himself Adam. She called herself Eve, child. But there was another, well, in that same episode, in that same episode, the reason that the man ended up on the planet was because his planet was engulfed in some form of nuclear war. There was another episode of the Twilight Zone where there was a nuclear war getting ready to erupt. This is a totally different episode where a nuclear war was getting ready to erupt on this planet. And the inhabitants had to move from that planet to another one. And we found out later on that it was Earth that they were moving to. See, Earth, the reason they call it the Mother Earth or the home planet is because Earth is like an interdimensional gateway or an interdimensional, how can I put it? It's like a, how can I put it? It's like an interdimensional gateway or portal that connects the realms. You feel what I'm saying? It's like a gateway. Earth is like a gateway. And that is why so many things happen the way that they do on this planet. Because Earth is a gateway planet. You get a little bit of this, you get a little bit of that. And that is why this planet is so rampant with negativity, because it is a gateway planet. So it's like the middle ground. Not too hot, not too cold. See, in that story with Goldilocks and the Three Bears, they were talking about Earth. Because Earth is really a younger civilization compared to the other ones that have existed. But that's another story, you know. Anyway, I just felt like talking. I just felt like talking about some things, and I don't know, just keep your eyes open. Not the eyes right here, but the eyes inside of you. Just keep them open. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.